In my Hot on These E-Streets weekly roundup, I typically cover 4 stories that were trending on social media or in the news media. However, this week I wanted to specifically talk about one story that was really trending on TikTok this week. The resilient Jenkins, a family of 7 living in a 1-bedroom apartment. A lot of people have already offered their perspective about it on TikTok. However, I haven't seen many people talk about it from the perspective of someone who did grow up in a big family. I am one of 7, number 2 in that lineup. So that's kind of what I want to talk about because I have a lot to say. And unfortunately, TikTok is not the platform where you can have nuanced conversations. So I wanted to bring it over here to YouTube because there's a lot going on there. There's a lot going on there. So let's talk about it. Aloha, beautiful humans. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, welcome back if we've been locked in. Let's talk about the resilient Jenkins. In case you have missed this story that was blowing up on TikTok earlier this week and is still new developments, I feel like we get a new development every single day. Very long story short, the resilient Jenkins are a family of 7 who are living in a 1-bedroom apartment. It is a woman, her 2 daughters, a man, his son, and then they both have a son together, and she is currently pregnant with their 2nd child together. So there are 5 children involved, 4 children here on earth, 1 in the womb, and then 2 adults. And they are living in this 1-bedroom apartment, and both of the parents, they say they're married. So I'm going to rock with that. There's been speculation about whether they're really married or not. They say they're married, so I'm going to roll with that. They went viral this week, and this woman has been on social media for a while trying to get their family vlog, family page off of the ground, but they went viral this week talking about their situation. One of their videos went hugely viral this week and has sparked a lot of discourse from people.
As you can read in the caption above, we're a family of 6 going on 7 living in a 1-bedroom apartment. As the kids grow older, that means we constantly have to adapt our environment to give them more means for privacy and extra space. When outside our environment appears cluttered, disorganized, what have you. But quite frankly, after making do for nearly 3 years now, I have nothing but a grateful spirit for the roof over our head. Generally, the instant judgment me and my husband receive, why have so many kids if you don't have enough space for them? See, my perception is judgment comes from a place of not having the experience. When you've experienced enough, you generally don't judge people. I can tell you after everything I've been through in the past 3 years, there's very little I have to judge people on. I would be lying if I said there wasn't a point in my life that I was so naive that I might have judged a poor person based off their appearance. And like I said, I have learned a lot. I generally look like I'm roughing it, but that's because our kids come first. I do everything I can to keep our environment clean and tidy. When it comes down to it, I could shove everything my kids have in 1 bedroom of some of these houses I see, and it would really look like nothing. We try to teach our kids to take care of what they have, be grateful for what we have. We keep praying and pushing for the growth that we want. Appreciate y'all watching. See you in the next video.
They have released follow-up videos, which I'm not going to post. If you are interested in following up on their story or following their page, they are the Resilient Jenkins on TikTok. I have blocked them because I find their entire situation very disturbing. He has one of his eldest child's mother recently came out and shared her side of the story that this man is a deadbeat father, has not paid any child support for their child together, who is 12 years old. Apparently he hasn't seen this kid since the child was 2 years old. So for the past decade, he has not been in this child's life, is not paying any child support. Like, it's just a giant mess. They have received a lot of backlash, but they have also received a lot of support. And a lot of people are saying that anybody who is sharing any criticism of them, it's poverty shaming. You are shaming people who have big families, who have a lot of children. As somebody who comes from a big family, who did not grow up rich by any means, I grew up solidly middle class. My parents both worked. My parents are still working. I am number 2 of 7 children. We grew up, I never went without. My basic needs were always met. I do not believe that people are poverty shaming. What we have seen from what they have chosen to show, that is neglect. These children are sleeping on the floor, on foam mattresses on the ground, and they came out to say that, oh, we bought them bed frames. They had bed frames, but they destroyed them. buy another one then. Kids are destructive. They break things. If my parents never went out and bought and replenished the things that we destroyed growing up as children, we possibly could have been sleeping on the floor too. We wouldn't have furniture. You know, kids are destructive. They break things. It is what it is. That's not an excuse, however, to not be providing your children the basic necessities: a bed, clothes. They don't have a washer and dryer in their 1-bedroom unit, so they have to go to a laundromat, which is fine. But in one of the videos that she posted, they were saying that their clothes are growing mold on them. They don't have enough clean clothes to wear. They're going weeks without clean clothes. Like, it's just everything that they have put out, they have shown us is 110% neglect. There are a lot of people who are living in conditions that we would call poverty, but poverty is not synonymous with neglect. And what they are doing to those children, the conditions they have them in, is 110% neglect. And people are saying, there was this woman, she was defending them, you know, oh, the kids are fed, the kids are clean. Why are we giving people a high five for doing the basics? They are your children. They didn't ask to be here. The basic, the base level parenting is making sure your children are fed, is making sure your children are clothed, is making sure your children are clean. We live in a day and age where people are so used to being high-fived and patted on the back for anything you put on the internet. And it's just like, I don't think we need to bring back shame, but I think it is very telling that people will show up on the internet and put the worst of their situation out there on the streets, exploit their children for gain, exploit their living conditions, their dismal living conditions for gain. And we're supposed to applaud that. We're supposed to reward that. And now they are being handsomely rewarded. You know, they had an Amazon wish list out. If you go to their TikTok, they're now at, I think, over 100,000 followers. They're able to be monetized. So now the parents will be profiting off of the neglectful conditions and the horrible situation that those children are being raised in. They didn't even have the decency to, again, blur these children's faces. And this is I think social media is rotting a lot of people's brains because the children did not ask to be here. They cannot consent to having their image out there like that. And now everybody is able to see the type of conditions they're living in. Their faces are on full display. Now when they go to school, are they going to be subjected to bullying? You know, it's like people don't think about the long-term ramifications of the decisions that they're making. Not everything belongs on social media. And there was a day and age in which we just wouldn't see people on social media in this capacity. But not only would you not see people on social media in this capacity, you wouldn't see people being rewarded for it. You know, these people are they have donations coming in. The mother posted a video of her opening her front door, and you just see all of these bags and all of these items. And on the one hand, I think it's horrible that they're being rewarded for the exploitation, the ways they are exploiting their children. On the other hand, I am glad to see that they are obviously getting the things that they need that will hopefully help those children. You know, they don't have clothes, they don't have bedding. You know, we saw somebody bought a bed frame, a bunk bed for those kids. So we saw the dad assembling it, and now they're not sleeping on the floor, you know. So on the one hand, I do think it's disturbing that they are exploiting their children for financial gain and obviously attention, obviously for clout, because the mother has been on TikTok for years at this point, but it's just now that she is finally going viral, and now her videos have millions of views. This is their game. This is their MO. And this is something a lot of people do. This is one woman that I think it was last year, or maybe it was really early this year, where she says she's homeless now because she moved her and her kids to a different city where they didn't know anybody. They didn't have any housing set up, but she moved to become a content creator. It's like, are you insane? Like, what? In what universe are you uprooting not just yourself, but your children, and you're going somewhere where you don't know anybody, you have no setup, you have no community, you don't have a place to live, and you're doing it in hopes of being a content creator? I've seen so many takes that are just spot on, but one thing I've seen a lot of people talk about is the racial dynamics that are going into that situation. The mother in this scenario, she is a white woman. The father, he is a black man. She has 2 children of her own, 2 daughters. They are white. He has a son of his own. The son is black. I think that is his second child, and he has custody of that child because the mother is, my understanding is the mother is not in that child's life. So they both have children from outside of their marriage. And then you have the son that they share together. He is a toddler. I think he's 18 months old, maybe 2 years old at the oldest. He looks very young, and he is biracial. And then she is pregnant with their second child. And she'll say it's giving fetish. And what makes me think it's giving fetish is because of the way she has described her husband's superior black genes. That's another video for another day. The reason why I say that there is a racial component and a racial element to this is that a black woman, a woman of color, but especially a black woman, could not get online and show these horrible conditions that she is living in and go on to get dozens, tens of thousands of followers on her page, not have her children taken away, or at the very least CPS called on her, and be able to profit off of this. We have seen this happen before, where that woman I talked about who moved to become a content creator and is now homeless, that is a black woman. That woman was shamed. She was flamed, and I haven't seen anything about her on social media in a very long time. I think she was actually at a certain point ran off of social media. People called CPS on her. There was another woman that had 4 children under the age of 4 years old and was living in a hotel room. People dragged her, people flamed her. She was not supported, but this white woman gets on TikTok showing the worst of her situation, and within less than a week, within days, she is able to monetize her situation, get over 100, the last time I checked, had over 100,000 followers, and put up an Amazon wish list, and her Amazon wish list was bought out. And not only are they able to monetize their situation, but be on the receiving end of support. There are so many people, I have genuinely been surprised by the amount of people who are sharing videos, offering them grace, telling them to lead with love, telling them that, oh, we should be kind to them. And to a certain extent, flaming them on social media is not going to change their situation, right? Flaming them on social media, what does that do? I never believe in jumping in anybody's comments and leaving them hate. I don't think that's necessary. The video that I posted on TikTok about the situation, the very short video, I was like, if watching this situation has disgusted you, if it has enraged you, go out and vote. That has been my entire mindset about this. If you watch the Resilient Jenkins and you were disgusted or disturbed or angered or saddened watching this woman exploit her family and her children, and the father by extent, because just because he is not the one behind the camera, just because he is not the one posting, doesn't mean he is not complicit in the exploitation of their children. They are both exploiting their children and their family together. So if their exploitation of their children has enraged you, stop. It's not appropriate, and it's not necessary for you to go in their comments and flame them, block them, report them, and then go vote. Vote for politicians, vote in your local down ballot elections, vote for politicians and elected officials who are pro-education, who are pro-women's reproductive rights and choices, who are pro-fair and equal affordable housing. Vote for politicians who are enacting policies that are friendly towards women and that are friendly towards family. And in turn, that will address child poverty, because these children, that is poverty. Poverty is not the issue, because like I said, poverty is not synonymous with neglect, okay? They are poor, they are experiencing poverty, but they are also choosing to neglect their children. And then they are also making a choice to exploit the neglectful conditions in which they are raising their children. Those are all choices that they are making. And along with other choices that they're making, we recently found out, I touched upon it a little bit earlier, that we recently find out the father in that situation is not working, and he is not working because he doesn't want to get a W-2 job, because getting a W-2 job would mean that the state can now start collecting child support from him, because the 12-year-old he has, the mother came out and said he has not paid child support in years. So this man doesn't want to get a job because he doesn't want to have to support his 12-year-old. So he would much rather create horrible conditions for his 4 children, now 5 children, because he doesn't want to pay child support for his oldest child. So he's not working. The mother is not working. Nobody is working in that home. The only way that they are providing for their children now, I think him not working is a very recent thing. So they're depending on social media to provide for their family now. They are basically collecting a check off of exploiting their children. And if it frustrates you, instead of engaging with their content, instead of sharing their video, instead of getting in the comments and because your rage is engagement, your energy is engagement. And that's also something that I talked about, because I don't think people understand that social media apps, especially TikTok, they thrive off of your rage. Your rage is currency. Your energy is currency. So if you are enraged by those people, the best thing you can do for them is block them. If you don't want them to be able to profit off of the exploitation of their children, stop flaming them in their comments. Block them. It is as simple as that, because they're not working, and neither of them, it seems, have any intentions of working. You know, the mother, it was very curious to me that both of them were like, we're doing the best we can to support our children. But they're not doing the best that they can. And as someone who comes from a big family, I've seen a lot of people leave commentary of this is what's wrong with having big families, or when people say you should only have as many children as you are able to afford. A lot of people are like, oh, that's poverty shaming, that's eugenics. And no, it's not eugenics. It is literally just facts. So looking at this situation as someone who comes from a big family, it is not poverty shaming. It is not eugenics to say that you should not be having children, which you cannot afford. You know, sometimes I remember one time I asked my mom, I was like, why did you and daddy have so many children? Like, what the F were y'all thinking? And my mom gave a very Catholic, a very African, a very Christian answer. She was like, the Lord will never give you any more than you can handle. He will always provide. And amen, amen. I believe that to be true, but also as something my dad says, like that's drilled into my head, is faith without works is meaningless. So you can have all the faith in the world that the Lord will provide, but if you are not out there doing the work to provide for yourself, to improve your situation, faith without works is dead. And that's exactly what we're seeing with this family. They want somebody else to do the work to provide and to support their children, their family, and that right there is neglect. They cannot afford those children. They are living in a 1-bedroom apartment and they are sleeping in the bedroom. They are creating more life. What do you think she's pregnant right now? Talking about her husband's superior black genes. They're going to continue having children they cannot afford. They are going to continue to neglect these children, and it has nothing to do with poverty and everything to do with the fact that they are not equipped to be parents. They don't have the skills. Because if you did have the skills, and if you were doing everything that you could be doing to put yourself in a better situation, that man would be working. He would be working whatever job or jobs necessary to provide and to put a roof over your children's head, to provide and put a better roof over your children's head. Having 7 people in a 1-bedroom apartment, I lived in an apartment until I was 8 years old, and my parents bought a house, and we had me, my older sister, the sister right after me, and my younger brother. It was a 2-bedroom apartment, and me and my sisters were in 1 bedroom. My parents were in the other bedroom, and then my little brother was in there with them. For 6 people in a 2-bedroom apartment was way too many people. And then they finally went and bought a house. But my dad, I distinctly remember my dad, that man kept so many jobs. My mom was in school. My mom was also working. My dad, he managed a Wendy's, a Silver Diner. He was also in school. Like, my mom recently just got her master's degree. My dad was out there doing everything to provide for us. But this was also the 80s and the 90s. There was no social media. There was no social media for you to put the worst of your situation on and rage bait and hope to get a cute coin off of that. Like, that didn't exist. My parents always worked multiple jobs to be able to provide for us. Poverty is not just a state of finance. It is also a state of mind. And listening to the way that they talked about work, especially the father who said, I'm not going to get a W-2 job. I know what my worth is, so I quit my job because they weren't paying me what I was worth. If they weren't paying you what you were worth, then you go out and you get a W-2 job. You pay what you owe to your first baby's mother. You do what is necessary and you do what you have to do to provide for your family. Having a job that doesn't pay you well, if it means that you can provide for your children, for your family, is better than not having a job at all. Poverty is a state of mind as well as a financial situation, and they will always be poor because of their mindset. Not they can make all of the money in the world. They can have this, they can get into the creator fund and they can make money off of rage bait, which is exactly what they're going to do. But they will always be poor with that mindset. It is not eugenics to tell people that they shouldn't be having children that they cannot afford. It is common sense. And as somebody who grew up in a big family, I don't think people understand what is very likely happening in that home. Because aside from the obvious neglect, I didn't grow up in an environment of neglect, but growing up in a big family, it causes you to, especially when you are in the front of the lineup, like I'm number 2. Me, my older sister, and the sister after me had different childhoods than my younger siblings, the younger 4. And it was because my parents, were just a little bit older. No child gets the same set of parents, right? Like every single one of us got a different set of my parents, but my younger siblings got a much different version of my parents than me, my older sister, and the sister right after me did. And we joke about it a lot. Growing up in a big family, it is something that I honestly love and I wouldn't trade for the world. I would not be out here having 7 children. I think about having one sometimes and I'm like, I don't know if I'm prepared for that. I don't know if I'm ready to get myself into that. But growing up with a big family, I loved it. You always have a built-in friend. It's so fun. Like growing up, my house was a house that was like the neighborhood meetup house where everybody would always come over and hang out. We weren't allowed to spend the night at other people's houses. So if people wanted to have sleepovers, they would all come to my house, at certain points, like Saturday morning. Like if somebody's parents were wondering where their children were, 9 times out of 10, they were going to be at my house, like growing up. So I really loved that about growing up in a big family where you just always had people over, you always had friends over. It was so much fun. And I look back on it like positively, absolutely, even though I would not replicate it for myself. And I have good memories of growing up in a big family. It also has its challenges, and a lot for everybody posting videos about this situation. I haven't seen any videos of people talking about what it is like to grow up with a big family, and not just grow up in a big family, but in a situation like that, where where there is obviously not enough to go around, where they are obviously growing up in poverty and neglect, and now they are adding more mouths to that situation. And with every mouth you are adding, it is taking away something from those children who are already there. And those children are going to absolutely grow up being resentful of their parents, if not for the neglectful conditions that they raised them in, then for the exploitation that they are doing to them, putting their faces out there. They have no say in that. This is the kind of stuff that stays on the internet forever. It's embarrassing and it's shameful, and they can't consent to that. They cannot consent to that. And it's just heartbreaking that these children are in that situation. And while I said that I really grew up loving like being from a big family, I don't really have any resentment towards my parents, but there were some frustrations that I had growing up and that I had to work through. For example, time. You really don't get a lot of time one-on-one with your parents. One memory that I think of so fondly, it's like the fondest memory I have in my heart, like one of like my top fond memory, is the day that like we never got sick, like growing up. Like it was not something that happened often. So when it did happen, it was a big deal. It was the 3rd grade. I was sick. I wasn't feeling well, and it was Halloween. So I was sad because I couldn't go to school, but it was just me and my dad at home that day. And we watched TV. Like it was just such a chill day. And I think that is the only day growing up that I remember having my dad just one-on-one time. And then my sisters came home, and then they brought me all of these candy. Like everybody in my class put like a piece of candy in that bag to bring to me because I didn't feel well. So it was just like a really fond memory I have. But when you grow up in a big family like that, you don't get one-on-one time with your parents. And that's something that these children are absolutely going to experience. Another thing growing up in a big family that a lot of people don't talk about is that you're parentified at an early age, especially if you are a girl child. Like me, my older sister, and the sister after me, we were cooking, we were cleaning. I started doing laundry when I was like 8 or 9 years old. And now I didn't mind it. Like doing laundry is still one of my favorite chores. I don't like the process of putting away clothes, but I love doing laundry, so I don't have any resentment towards my parents over it. But there were times where I couldn't do things. I couldn't go out with my friends because my parents were working or they were doing something, or they would just tell me no, like, no, you can't go out. And then I would just have to sit there and watch my siblings. That's something that these kids are going to have to do. Those two girls are absolutely going to be playing a role of little mommy. They're going to be watching their younger siblings. They're going to be changing diapers. The mom does not work now, but even with the mom at home, they're going to have certain duties. They're going to be parentified to a certain degree. And that's the only way large families function. A lot of people think it's like really cute, like, oh, look at all the kids, but who do you think is watching all of those kids? Like, I remember the Duggar situation and now the ballerina farm situation. I talked about that. And with the Duggars, you see it, they always had their little buddy system, but they had their buddy system because there is no way you can watch 14 children, 12 children, 8 children, 9 children. There's no way one adult can watch all of those children. So the kids, the older kids, end up taking care of the younger kids. And while, I don't have any resentment over it, but there are some people who will grow to have a certain level of resentment of it. And it's not fair to them. Those children don't ask to be here. And to a certain degree, it can impact your childhood because you're not able to just be in a child's place. You have to take on the role of an adult. Like, I was getting I was getting my little sisters ready for school. I was doing their hair. And to this day, like, I'm the only one of my sisters who can, like, I can braid my own hair. I can put in my own sew-ins. I used to relax my hair. I used to relax my siblings' hair because I was the one responsible for doing everybody's hair. Like, I think I remember when I turned like 12 or 13, my mom like passed the torch and she was like, well, you're doing everybody's hair now. And again, I'm not resentful about it because I like doing hair, but it's one of those things where you may not have liked it as a kid, and now you're given this responsibility because your parents are out here procreating like rabbits and you don't have a say in whether you have to watch your siblings or not. You're parentified at a very young age. And then on top of that, I talked about like, when you are introducing more mouths into a situation with very limited resources, that's taking away the limited resources that already exist. And so I remember wanting to do certain things growing up and I couldn't do it because there wasn't a lot of money to go around. I would want to go to the movies or I would want to go to the mall and my parents would be like, yeah, you can go, but here's like $5, here's $10. What are you going to do with that? You're not going to be able to do a lot. And so I didn't have a lot of, just money. I wasn't always able to go out and have certain experiences with my friends because we just didn't have money for that stuff. And I remember that motivating me to get a job. So I got a job at Bath and Body Works. We weren't allowed to work when I was in high school. So my parents did give us spending money. It wasn't much, but we did have money. So when I say I wasn't really going without, I wasn't going without the necessities. I always had the necessities, but it's that extra stuff that you want that you don't have. I'm saying this as somebody, again, who grew up solidly middle class and we never went without. These children, though, are in a completely different situation. They are going without. They are absolutely going without. We weren't allowed to work when I was in high school. So when I graduated high school, I got a job at Bath and Body Works and I started working, and so I would have spending money and pocket money for the things that I wanted to buy. I remember one time in high school, I wanted a pair of Air Force Ones, and my parents were like, $100 for some shoes? Immediately no. And I got the Reebok Princesses, and I was flamed every single day for it. Like, why are we frying people over freaking shoes? Can we talk about this? I wasn't chasing high school popularity by any means, so people bullying me, it didn't really have like a long lasting impact on me. I just wanted these Air Force Ones and I wasn't allowed to have them, and it sucked. And so like 2 or 3 years ago, I bought myself a pair of Air Force Ones and I was like, this 15-year-old Sasha is like patting me on the back like, yeah, you go, girl. Like, there was something very healing to my inner teenager that I was able to finally get these shoes that I wanted. And also, I really think that my parents did a really good job of raising us, that we weren't superficial. We didn't feel the need to chase every single trend, but also at the same time, my parents were not going to give in. We could not afford to have 7 children in $100 pairs of shoes. Like, that would not be happening in my household. But also my parents like raised us to be like really resilient. So we did not really none of my siblings, we never like followed trends or been like followers. Like, we're all leaders in our own way. And that's something that I credit my parents a lot to, because they were like, you don't go to school for it to be a fashion show. You don't go to school to make friends. Like, very African. Like, if you know, you're not going to school to make friends. It's not a fashion show. You are going there to learn, period. That is your job in school. So anything else is extra. Extracurriculars are extras. Friends are extra. We don't care about that. We send you there to learn. So anyways, all of this is, now I lost my train of thought. What was I getting at? Oh yeah, so you are now bringing in these children are going to have a level of resentment because they're going without the basics. I'm talking about the basics. These kids didn't even have beds. Their clothes had mold in it because they are not able to go out and wash their clothes, but they don't have enough money to buy new pairs of clothes. So now you're just sitting in here in dirty clothes. Even though I was like not a follower and I was not somebody who gave into peer pressure or bullying, I do distinctly remember not having certain things. And the thing is, because of the age gap between my siblings, my youngest brother, he's 15 years younger than me. Then the next sibling, we are 11 years apart in age. And then my other sister, we are 9 years apart in age. Because of that age difference, by the time my younger siblings were coming up, if they went to my parents for something and my parents were like, no, then they would come to me or my older sister or the sister right after me. But generally me or my older sister, they would come to us and they would be like, oh, mommy and daddy are not going to buy me this. Can you buy it for me? And generally we would say yes. So they never really experienced having to go without. Like all of my younger siblings went to private schools. Like they, had name brand everything. Whereas me, my older sister and me and my older sister, we always say like we were the test dummies because we didn't have no name brand anything. We went to public school. Like we were the test dummies for our parents. Like they learned how to navigate the school system through us, the FAFSA through us, college applications. Like we were the test dummies for so many things. And so my younger siblings didn't really have to go without because they had older siblings that were going to get them certain things that my parents really didn't want to. And then at that certain point, like my parents did have more money, but they were also sending my younger siblings to private school. They have uniforms. So it's not even like they had to worry about what they were going to wear. They didn't have to, but like the accessories, the North Face was big, or UGG boots that was in like when my younger siblings were in elementary school, middle school, high school. So yeah, so you're like wanting name brand things in other ways. Like I remember one, oh my, wonder if she remember. We always bring this up to embarrass one of my sisters. Well, not to embarrass her, but it is a very funny story because it's the first Christmas that Snowbay spent with my family. And so my sister wanted a pair of UGG boots, but we couldn't find UGG boots in her size. So we ended up buying her, what were they? Bear Claws? I think that was the name of them, like Bear Claw. I think that was the brand name of it. It was like the off-brand UGG boots. So we bought it for her, wrapped it up. And I think she really thought like that was her big ticket item. And she was like, she just knew she was going to get it. So she opened the box and I think, did we record this? No, we didn't record it. Yeah. In hindsight, I wouldn't even have posted the footage because that's not out there. I wouldn't put her on blast that way. Well, with the footage, I will tell the story because it's a funny story, but I'm not going to put the footage out there. But anyway, she opened up the box and you just see her, like she was opening up and she was excited. Like she shook the box and she could tell it was like shoes. So she thinks she's getting a pair of UGG boots and she opens the box and then she opens the wrapping paper and she sees it's a pair of Bear Claw instead of Uggs. And she starts crying like she was devastated. She wouldn't even open up the box to like look at them. We were like, oh my God, girl, are you serious? And then my husband, this is the first Christmas he spent with us. And my husband's sitting there like, that's hilarious. But anyways, all of this to say that those Jenkins family kids, the older siblings, they will be the ones who will experience the full breadth of that poverty. They will remember it. It will impact them the most. They will absolutely have a level of resentment towards their parents. And that level of resentment is something that they will have to deal with growing up and could impact their relationship they have with their parents down the line and possibly their siblings. Something that is also, in my personal opinion, very neglectful about that situation and that like caused me to raise an eyebrow was they met over the panini in 2020 and she had 2 daughters, he had 1 son, and then they moved in together after just a month of knowing one another. So you haven't vetted this man, he hasn't vetted you. You are bringing your children into this living environment with another adult who you don't know. How is that safe? What if one of them was a PDF? Just the thoughtlessness and the selfishness of these parents, it's actually crazy to me that they would be so comfortable putting their situation out there. And then another thing that I don't think enough people think of is they're showing off their entire layout of their home, of their 1-bedroom apartment. These children are sleeping in the living room. These parents are in the bedroom. What is to stop someone from breaking and entering into your home and kidnapping one of your children and just running out of the door? You've showed the entire layout of your apartment. You showed that there is no security set up there. Like, and then on top of like showing the entire layout of your apartment, what's to stop somebody from finding the name of your apartment, then reaching out to the management office, because there are housing codes. You know, there are only so many people. Some states have codes. Every state is different, but how many people are allowed to occupy one space? Now you have put your housing, your already precarious housing situation in jeopardy for what? You know, it's like, it's just this level of clear lack of thought, clear lack of care, clear selfishness that these children are going through. It's not about poverty shaming. And I think we need to get to a place as a society where we are able to criticize and critique something and ask hard questions without the automatic default being you're shaming them or you're being judgmental. We are shrinking away from any level of accountability as a society because we are not able to call a thing and speak clearly without people, you know, automatically jumping to the defense, or everything is shaming nowadays. And it's like, this is not shaming. Being critical of these people, calling out how neglectful they are being of those children, is not poverty shaming. It is not eugenics to sit here and say you shouldn't be having more children than you can afford, then you are reasonably able to take care of. That should just be common sense. Like, why would you continue? Children don't ask to be here. They do deserve the best of whatever you can provide for them. If you are doing your best as a parent, then you are doing your best. But these two are absolutely not doing their best. They refuse to work and are relying on social media to pick up the slack for them. I grew up, again, one of 7. My parents didn't have a wish list ready for people to be able to buy us things. Those children didn't ask to be here. They didn't ask to be in that situation. And this is not about big families. This is not what all big families look like. And I am here to say this as somebody who is from a big family. That is not what big families look like. It is not the norm. These people, there's obviously a fetish going on here, several fetishes going on here. If I'm being totally honest, I think she strikes me, just some of the verbiage she used. She is one of those people that strikes me as someone who enjoys being pregnant and will continue to have as many children as she is able to, regardless of whether they are equipped to be able to take care of those children. It's giving Duggar. You know, Michelle Duggar, she was addicted to being pregnant and having small babies. She loved babies. That is the vibe that this woman gives me, you know. And then there's also the racial aspect and fetish that I think is absolutely going on, which people may not want to talk about. And if you don't want to talk about it, sorry, I'm going to talk about it. There's obviously some racial fetish going on there that is informing their decisions. And again, I am saying this from the things that I have heard from her mouth, but it is really disturbing. And this is just a random aside. Why does she have cats? You know, like in one video, she is cleaning out this cat's litter box. And even though I've never been pregnant before, it immediately shocked me to see her cleaning out those litter boxes, because any woman knows that you are not supposed to be touching cat poop or handling any type of kitty litter. That job, that chore, you are not supposed to be anywhere around it, because there is a parasite that is found in cat poop that can really harm you and your fetus as a pregnant woman. So that is a chore that if you have a cat, please, for the love of God, do not be cleaning out your litter box. Pass that chore off to somebody else in your home. Period. But yeah, there's just a lot of neglect going on in that home, and there's this fetishization of big families. A lot of people think that Ish is cute, and as someone who is from a big family, no, that family and that structure only works if you are equipped to take care of your children, but nobody ever talks to the children in those situations. I think if you ask my siblings how they felt about it, each of us is gonna have a different view. Each and every single one of us is gonna have a different perspective, because we all got different parents. However, from my perspective personally, I loved growing up in a big family. It is not something that I would replicate for myself. I do not want 7 children for myself. Sometimes I question whether I even want 1 child. I was parentified at an early age. It is not something that made me resentful of my parents. However, there were times that I went without. I was not able to do certain things, or I had to watch my younger siblings. And I didn't want to do that, and I didn't like doing it. It's not something that scarred me by any means. I don't have trauma over it, but it's not fair. Your children don't ask to be here, and there are just certain things that are not fair to children. And I don't think it's fair to bring children into this world if you are not able to provide for them. And that is not poverty shaming. It is not eugenics. It is just facts. I don't believe the response, however, is to jump into their comments and flame them, block them, keep it moving, and then go vote in your down ballot elections. There is a child down the street from you that is living in those conditions. If you can donate, do just that. And then also, I think another reasonable solution, for as long as people are able to to use social media to exploit their situation, to chase a check, we will continue to see that. So keep on blocking these people and stop following family vloggers and following family channels, because that's quiet as it's kept. That is also a larger part of this situation. It is very disturbing to me the degree to which people are so comfortable filming their children, filming every single moment of their children's life, and then throwing it out there on social media without their consent, for profit, for fame, for attention, for followers, for views. It's very easy to flame this Jenkins family because of the obvious neglect that's going on in that household. But there are family vloggers out here who are doing the same thing to their children, exploiting them, but we don't view it as exploitation because they live in a big ass house or a big mansion, and they're going to Disney, and you know, they're clean, and they're not sleeping in bunk beds, or they're not sleeping on the floor. That's exploitation too. It's just being dressed up in a very pretty, fluffy way that feels good to watch. But why are we uplifting? Why are we upholding family vlogs? If you are tired of seeing this content, and if you're tired of people being able to monetize the exploitation of their children, of their families, then stop supporting it. Stop supporting it. But the Jenkins family is not a reflection of all blended families. It is not a reflection of what it is like to grow up in and have a big family. It is a clear sign, though, of obvious neglect, in obvious poverty. And while in this moment they cannot help their poverty, which actually, no, they can help their poverty. They're both choosing not to work. So not only are they not choosing to help their financial situation as 2 able-bodied adults, and they are choosing to neglect their children and put it online for likes, clicks, views, shares, followers, and profit. So if it's pissing you off, block them. Do not engage in the content. Block them. Simple as that. So drop down in the comments and let me know your thoughts on whether it's this Jenkins family situation, family vloggers, children being exploited online. Like, let me know what you think about this. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, peace out.